Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's 9 o'clock. I see we have quorum, so I call this meeting, this regular council meeting in session. And today we have a new item we're going to put on the agenda. We used to do this all the time until our previous clerk retired and we had no one to lead the singing. So now we're going to ask everyone to please rise if able for the playing of the national anthem by Sarah Leach and assisted by the Toronto Symphony Orchestra. Okay, excellent. I thank the Clerk's Department for looking up that recording. And now I will ask Councillor Nesnick to please honor us to read the land ignition statement.
Yes, good morning. On this National Indigenous Peoples Day, we begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and it is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. And acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Before we get to the approval of agenda, if I may, for the indulgence of Council, just like to thank the Station 3 firefighters for staging another successful Strawberry Festival this past Saturday. It was indeed a community favorite, and I know everyone looks forward to it every year. And again, they were blessed with beautiful weather and a huge turnout of citizens to partake of strawberries and ice cream. Again, thank you to the Station 3 firefighters. And now I turn to the clerk for the approval of agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that the agenda for the June 21st, 2023 regular meeting of Council be adopted as circulated.
Okay, thank you. After looking at the agenda, is there any changes to be made? Not seeing any. Mr. Clerk?
Starting with the vote, Councillor Eckhart?
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Councillor Kerr?
Yes.
Councillor Nisnik?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
So that motion is carried. Thank you. Moving to item number 4, disclosure of pecuniary interests and general nature thereof.
Thank you. After reviewing the agenda, does any councillor have a pecuniary interest and general nature thereof to declare? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So moving to item 5 on our agenda, we have a delegation from Ivan Frederet about oak wilt in Pelham. So I'll turn to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ivan, you have the floor, and thank you for making this presentation to council and to the residents.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say for the Strawberry Festival, maybe we can work on the lineup for the ice cream next time.
Yes, yes.
I wasn't able to get anything. The lineup was right around the building when I got there. So maybe 2 lines next time.
Yes.
I am Ivan. I'm an arborist at Safe Tree here in Pelham. And I'm here to discuss the recent discovery of oak wilt in our region. Oak wilt is something that's been around for decades in the U.S., and we've been expecting it to break the border eventually. The fact that it did right here in our region is very concerning to me, as it should be for everybody else. So I'll start by saying, what is oak wilt? Oak wilt is a vascular disease caused by the fungus Bractelia phagocerum. It affects all oak trees. The fungus attacks and grows through the xylem of the trees. It also limits the movement of water and nutrients so that the tree itself starts to decline. The fungus can be transferred from tree to tree by sap beetles. These sap beetles look for wounds in the bark through which they can enter and feed on the sap. The beetle will have needed to visit a tree with oak wilt in order to carry and spread the disease to a previously uninfected tree. Where sap beetles typically don't travel more than a few kilometers, most new fungal infections occur through the direct contact of grafted roots underground. Any long-distance movement of oak wilt will likely be due to human-caused movement of freshly cut firewood from infected regions. So is oak wilt really a threat? Yes. It is estimated that up to 30% of the region's foliage is oak. White oaks are not as susceptible to the disease as red oaks. For example, the entire east side of Haste Street, between Haste and Pelham Street, is almost entirely red oak. Oak Lane is a beautiful area, beautiful part of our neighborhood. The entire species in there will be wiped out, other than a few small black cherries that are left. Sarah. Sorry. What, Sarah?
Yes.
You're amazing. Thank you. What can we do to prevent oak wilt from spreading once an infected tree is identified, which it has? It should be important to mention that we were actually expecting oak wilt to come through Windsor. It has decimated Michigan, and that was the entry point where we were expecting. So we thought we had a lot more time before it reached the region. When oak wilt is discovered, infected trees should be removed and disposed of by trained certified arborists to prevent further spread. Adjacent oaks that may have root grafts to the affected trees are likely to become infected below the ground, even if they do not immediately show signs of the fungus. Now that oak wilt is confirmed in our region, it's extremely important not to unnecessarily wound oak trees by cutting, damaging, or breaking the bark, particularly between April and August when the beetles are most active. Excuse me. So, Pelham, like I said, Pelham's urban forest, we have a lot of oak trees. If we walk through the St. John's Conservation Area, probably up to 25% of the trees in there would be red oak. What does this mean for the, what does this mean for the region and the municipalities? We need to consider creating or updating our backyard tree removal bylaws in order to prevent the trimming removal of oaks during the spring and summer months when potential spread of the fungus into the tree wounds is greatest. The beetles do not travel in winter months, so it's not as concerning to do any damage to trees. Reminding our tree trimming crews to avoid all wounding of oaks. If wounding is necessary, to be treating the wounds with paint or pruning paint or latex paint. There is good news, however, oak wilt will likely move through the landscape more slowly. It will be much like the Dutch elm disease that we witnessed and less like the emerald ash borer. So while planning is important, the time frame will be prolonged. While there aren't the same treatment options to slow the decline of trees as we had with EAB, you do not need to immediately create plans for removals. What it means for homeowners, we need to monitor our trees, prevent any unnecessary wounding. We have to stop the movement of oak through firewood, and we need to take care of our mature trees. I am here today to talk to council for 4 reasons. One, I think it's very important that we raise the awareness of what's going on, or we will see the effects that we did with Dutch elm disease and emerald ash borer. 2, I would like to put tighter restrictions on the transportation of firewood within the region and outside of the region and leaving the region. 3, I would like Pelham, being the center of the region, to set an example and be the first to have bylaws to prevent people from removing or pruning uninfected trees, including developers, during the prime months of the activity of the beetle. And 4, I would like to see politicians put pressure on the PMRA to allow the use of effective treatments such as propiconazole. Propiconazole is a treatment that has shown to have up to 97% success rate in the US. However, the product is banned in Canada under the Pest Management Regulatory Agency, who abides to the Pest Control Products Act. We have not been able to find good reasons for the banning. It is an injection, so the likelihood of it being in contact with skin through absorption or in ingestion is highly unlikely. So I would like to get it out there and start to be able to use such products. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that presentation, Ivan. I will now turn it over to council. Any questions to the presenter on this presentation? Councillor Eckert.
Just a couple of things. Thank you. Just a couple of things. We're working very hard here in Pelham to increase our tree canopy. And this, to me, sounds like it's going to set us back years if we don't get on this thing. First question I was going to ask you was this propiconazole you said you can't find any real reasons why it was banned, especially if it's an injected rather than a sprayed, aerial spraying or something like that?
Thank you for your question, Brian. The only evidence we could find, and this was a lot of digging, was the possibility of creating thyroid issues through in humans through ingestion. So actually ingesting the product, possibly through through your skin as well. However, it does come in a sealed container, and it goes from there through pipes straight into the tree. It does not have to be exposed to any skin.
It's been a long time since I've eaten a tree, but I don't understand that at all. But and I noticed that Minnesota uses this product, and the recovery rate looks extremely promising. How long have they been suffering from this, and how long did it take them to get on it? Do you know?
I believe it's close to 2 decades.
Oh, wow.
They've been using it the entire time. The key is to get it into trees before they get the wilt. Once they have oak wilt, it's too late.
Gotcha.
You're just
So
prolonging the life of the tree at that point. It is the oak wilt is not as aggressive in small trees, so we're going to find it in our large mature trees first, and of course the ones that cost the most to remove and are most difficult. So it's imperative that we treat our live trees in our neighborhood to stop them from getting oak wilt.
And what should we be looking for? My neighbor has a big, beautiful white oak in his backyard. And I know it's not as susceptible as red oak, but what should we be looking for?
So we'll be looking for browning of the leaves. It's important to know that there's also other reasons that cause browning of the leaves, whether it's high heat, drought, or other stresses. However, it will work from the tips of the leaves inwards, and there will be a discoloration. It won't just be one solid brown color. There is lots of information out there, and SafeTree will be holding a webinar at some point for residents of Pelham to discuss how to look for it and what we can do within our community. I just don't have that date yet.
Thank you, Ivan.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Let's go to this side first. Councillor Wink.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. Ivan, thanks very much for your presentation. It's eye-opening. I read in the paper a couple of weeks ago that it was found in Niagara Falls, and now all of a sudden it's a pretty scary thing to lose our canopy as such. So the injections that go in the tree, do they have to be repeated, or is it just one-time injection of the tree? So if I had an oak tree on my property, do I inject it once and it's good, or?
Yeah, sorry, I had to look at Kate there for confirmation on it. Yes, it is a one-time injection for preventative. If the tree does show signs of oak wilt or is confirmed oak wilt, to prolong the life of the tree will be multiple injections annually.
So thank you for that. So you mentioned that there should be a tree bylaw for private property as far as trimming and taking it down. Can you make a suggestion on what that would look like?
So yeah, I think this is probably one of the most important things to do even before we start to put pressure on the federal government for the pesticides, is when the beetle gets scent of the sap, it will travel up to 1 kilometer to get to that tree. And if it's been in a tree with oak wilt, it will infect it. So the beetle gets in under the bark, burrows in there to suck the sap. The beetle actually doesn't do any damage to the tree itself, and it introduces the fungal disease through the pads of its feet or on its back into the vascular system of the tree. Now, if we're pruning trees within April to August, that is when the beetle is most active. It will travel very vigorously at that time. It's very active, and if it lands on your neighbor's tree and does not go to the next tree, the fungus will travel through the roots because the roots graft together in the neighborhood, and it will travel throughout the root system and infect all of the trees. So even if you are not pruning your tree, if your neighbor does, chances are your tree will get it as well. So it's very important that we monitor everybody in the area, or at least inform or make it harder for them to do these things, so that it doesn't affect people who are being proactive.
So this is kind of wide-reaching, just not on these particular trees, but other trees where, you know, I go in the backyard and I've got a garden underneath spruce trees and whatever, and, you know, it's hitting my head and I want to prune it. Now you're telling me that I should, for all trees, have a bylaw there that I can't cut it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So would would a bylaw require a homeowner to contact the town to say that they want to prune their tree?
We are very capable of pruning our trees from September to April, through the winter months. Delayed gratification is very important in this scenario. Even with home builders who need to remove oak trees, they're very capable of postponing some of their work, removing the trees in the winter, and getting back at it in the spring.
Great, thank you.
Councillor, you finished?
Yes, that's
Okay,
fine.
I'll go back to this side. Councillor Nesnick?
Yes, thank you very much. So I guess through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Public Works, do we have a current pruning bylaw in place?
To Jason Mart, Director of Public Works.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, we do not have a current bylaw that's in place that prevents private tree pruning. As you're aware, Council approved a new invasive species policy last meeting. So that policy has been established. There's been a reserve that's been established to take care of issues such as this. I also know I have Ryan Cook, my manager of Public Works. He's on the call as well. He is in contact with the City of Niagara Falls and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency with respect to how they're handling the situation. I do know that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is leading the investigation right now. So it's all new. This is a good presentation for us to hear, for sure. But yeah, we're following up with the City of Niagara Falls and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency on that as well.
Thank you for that, Councillor.
Great, so thank you very much. So just, you know, always cautious with regards to creating bylaws that kind of restrict people in terms of their own private property and that sort of thing. But in this case, it might behoove us to have something in place to move forward. So I'm not sure if we should wait for maybe a staff report, or could I suggest we ask staff to give us a report and come back to us with some recommendations?
I think that's a great step, actually. I'll go to the CEO in a minute.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'll go back to this side. Councillor Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. A couple quick questions. What's the species of beetle that transfers the fungal pathogen?
It is a...
Do you know the botanical name?
Yeah, so there's 2 or 3 different beetles that carry it. They are a sap beetle. The common name is sap beetle. The botanical name is quite difficult. There are 3 that we know of. We are working with Vineland Research on identifying exactly which ones will carry them and which ones do not, that are here in Ontario.
Thank you. And again, Mr. Mayor, I guess, sorry to put you on the spot. My background's in entomology, so doing a lot of work on things like this and working with different species and a whole bunch of things. So I have...
Kevin, I love learning. Please.
I have all these different things. Secondary part is oak wilt is predominantly Quercus species, which is the genus of oak, but not Pinus, not Acer, which is maple, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we have to be, my suggestion to council is looking at, you're discussing really a pruning bylaw relative to specific or at least a genera of trees rather than all trees, be it on site. So I'm following up on Councillor Wink's comment about pine trees and other things. The secondary part that came in because it talked about not pruning trees, we have a large agricultural entity, and there are people with woodlots and other things that are highly involved with woodlot management. And I think the educational aspect of this is critical. Having dealt with Dutch elm disease and the treatments that were done, and I appreciate your bringing this out, that it was, if infected, it's a multiple treatment situation. The other part was why Pest Management Regulatory Agency declined the registration. When you dig through, you'll find, having dealt with them for close to 45 years now, sometimes their decisions are not always, they base it on potential use, volume of sales, and in many times it's actually coming back to the manufacturer that basically gives up on the registration from the economic standpoint that it's not worthwhile. Getting them to change their mind is a massive thing to do. Even CFIA has been unable. In periodic times, they've been able to give emergency registration to products. Bringing back propiconazole, it was used agriculturally for many years and then was removed from the system based on worker exposure and other things, and that was the predominant reason. It wasn't strictly, it strictly wasn't forestry use. This was used for other things. So it's being aware of those types of things as well as groundwater and some other things that they were very concerned about. So I'm not justifying what they've done, but I just know it's an agency that I call, it's an elephant that's hard to move at times. So being aware, I think the educational standpoint is going to be the most critical at this point. The pruning timing from that standpoint, the things that you're doing are great. As for a tree pruning bylaw, there's two components that always come in, and one is the development of the bylaw, and the second part is enforcement of the bylaw is the next most challenging factor, and having arborists and everybody certified to go there. As a side for the rest of council, if people do suspect whenever they have any plant, actually, that they feel is infected with any disease or anything, the plant diagnostic clinic at the University of Guelph will do analysis and identify positively whether you have or do not have it. Because many times there's a misidentification and people take a nutrient disorder, physical stress, even the adverse root pruning at the wrong time can produce a yellowing of the leaf, and it's a great challenge to be the I'll call it the Sherlock Holmes in finally coming to the final answer as fast as you can. But your point is well made, and I think it's there. I think we can advocate. This is going to be a region, if not province-wide issue. They have enacted in many areas regulations relative to the movement of firewood, again, going back to elm bark beetle and other ones that move throughout the province, and they just said no. I remember when it first came into Essex, and that was a big thing in terms of moving along. So I applaud you for bringing this to the recognition of council. The challenge is going to be trying to come up with something that fits with it, that isn't overly restrictive, but is predominantly informative to highlight to people what the true risks are going to be. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any comments on that, Ivan?
Yes, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. I would love to sit down and discuss this more with you because I'm continually learning myself. I just want to make the point that I think it is extremely important. You said it's hard to move an elephant, but if we do have enough people, we can, for one. And there is no doubt that this is a challenging task, but I have confidence in the town of Pelham to be willing to take on a challenge, and I would be more than willing to help with anything that I can. And I think it would be absolutely wonderful if Pelham was the one to take the first step and start to make an example for the rest of the region.
Thank you. Before I go to Councillor Olson, you have, oh, no, you're good. Okay. So, yeah, when Ivan, after we had talked, and I realized that the effort was going to have to be made to get Health Canada to reverse a situation. Yes, I know the ag industry has lost many helpful chemicals over the years, and to get them reinstated is a very steep hill to climb. Obviously, the number one thing here is public education, and to get a hold of our elected officials, provincial and federal, and say, listen, there's a lot at stake here, and we don't have a lot of time, as you say. Interested, and I realize it's probably just speculation. Like you were saying, we always had heard 2 or 3 years ago that we thought it was going to come from the southwest. The fact that it was found in Niagara Falls, are they speculating as to how it did make the jump across the border, or how it got started there?
The chances are it was human transportation.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so I would think, if I'll ask the CEO, I have a feeling that this council would like to see a staff report on this, and it's great to see that Public Works is already involved in that. Mr. CAO, any comments about further steps?
Thank you, Your Worship. If I can be so bold, I think we have an agricultural advisory committee, and we have a number of tree farms in the area, and so we do have some expertise we ought to tap into, I would submit. So what I would suggest is that, and I'm not sure when the next Ag Advisory Committee meeting is. Certainly they've been doing a lot of work on the backyard chicken file at the moment. I think that's the next major piece of advice to come from them. So I think the next meeting is August 23rd, and I think that this is a reasonable thing to put on that agenda to get some feedback there. So the good news is that conjunctively as a staff, we have some expertise with respect to forestry. We have some considerable expertise with respect to bylaw drafting, and agriculture in general. We have an advisory committee full of experts. So I think the appropriate way is to sort of, on the staff level, look at what's possible in the world of bylaw, and on the substance level, and perhaps this is an excellent speaker we ought to invite to the next Ag Advisory Committee, because that's some very good input, that being August 23rd, to hear what the Ag Advisory Committee has to say and tap into that expertise, and let that inform a future staff report. So I think, without committing to a specific date, that we have 2 meetings in October. I think that would be a reasonable time to bring forth at least a staff report, if not potentially some bylaws. We'll see where the expertise and the advice takes us. But clearly this is something we need to move on. We're already well into the growing season, and realistically we did set up obviously a reserve and a general policy without this wilt in mind specifically. Obviously, spongy moth was the trigger for us, and we learned something from that, which was we need to start setting aside money. So this council's already committed that process. So there are some base resources available, and this is going to require a couple of things. It's going to require policy. It's going to require some education, as we've heard. There may or may not ultimately be a technical fix, some sort of pesticide, herbicide, whatever that happens to be. And then, of course, there's a legal, a bylaw component to that as well. We can assemble those things, or at least most of them. But I think the correct order is to the Ag Advisory Committee. Simultaneously, staff can do some work on the legal process piece, and then we take those pieces together along with some education and come back to council with some sort of operative plan, and that would be somewhere in the fall. And I would think that October might be realistic, but I say that in the absence of hearing what the Ag Advisory Committee might have or need, and what time they might need to assemble their best advice. So if we can simply, if a council would accept an undertaking for a staff report this calendar year, That gives us some flexibility. I would imagine that means somewhere in Q4. But we try to come to you with substance rather than merely an initial report. So something that I hope would be actionable.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for those words. Councillor Olson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ivan, for bringing this to our attention with some urgency, and I appreciate that. The best solution, I think, and fastest solution is going to be education, and you've started that today. My questions to the CAO: are we engaged with Vineland Research? Are we members there, or are we still contemplating that?
Well, I wish I could report that we were members. That the last time that issue was before, well, it was the previous council that was defeated. So no, we are not members, but if that were part of council's direction, staff would be only too pleased to provide some advice with respect to that specific issue. And clearly there is some considerable expertise in Vineland.
And my question to Ivan, how much is this due to climate change, the advance of this beetle from where it used to live, I guess in Minnesota and different places?
I'm not an expert on climate change by any means, but my personal thought would be it has not much to do with it at all. I would like to also point out, if I can, Vineland Research Center is a huge asset. They are right in our backyard, and they are worldwide some of the best. We are part of the Green the Landscape Consortium, and it's highly recommended on my end.
Councillor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree. I think that's something we should be taking advantage of. And I'm pleased to hear you say that about them, because they're right here. And the other thing is, I would not jump to the Agricultural Committee immediately. I think we have a climate change and environmental committee that will probably get started very soon, and that might be more appropriate for them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, knowing that this virus has been in the States for so long, hopefully Vineland has got a little bit of a handle on it and can advise us, along with other tree experts, as to just how we can fight this devastation that could happen. So any other? I see Councillor Wink.
Yes, so a couple of things. Firstly, with respect to Vineland Research, we don't have to be a member to get that research. However, I would like to suggest that CAO brings that topic back up to us and we get involved in this as soon as possible. The other thing is, I appreciate CAO's comments about the timing of all these things. Rome wasn't built in a day, but I think there has to be a public awareness immediately. So whether it's on our website, whether it's through advertising in The Voice or other papers, to say this is a concern, and these are the things that you should not be doing. You shouldn't be touching really the oak trees between now and the end of August. We can't wait for a report in October to start getting that message out. I would suggest that we get that message out right away.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. I'll go back to the Director of Public Works, Jason Marr, for your comments on that. And hopefully, as you were saying, Ryan is in contact with Niagara Falls, and perhaps when we get more information, I think that's a great idea to put whatever we have, correct information, on the website. Any comments on that, sir?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, I just want to make a comment. We do have it up on our website. So if you go into our website under Living Here, Invasive Species, there's a page for that, and underneath invasive species, you'll see a link to oak wilt, and it provides a bunch of information with respect to oak wilt and how to handle it and how to try to prevent spread.
Excellent. Go back to the counselor.
Yeah, so my concern is that not everyone goes into that and drills down to all those invasive species. I think there's got to be something, we've got to be proactive on this. I think sometimes it's great to be a follower, but sometimes it's great to be a leader. And I don't care what Niagara Falls is doing or whatever. We've got to start getting the message out. And whether that's bang right on our front page or we spend some advertising elsewhere, people have to know that they shouldn't be touching the oak trees between April and August. Dead stop. You know, whether we have bylaws or not, we've got to put something out there. People have to know more about this than just, you know, they're looking to us to be leaders. We've got to get out there and get the message out. And Ivan, I really appreciate you coming out here and explaining this to us. But we've got to pass on Ivan's message to everybody in the town. So I'd like to see us be a little more proactive on this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kurt?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think there's huge opportunity to inform the community. I agree with Councillor Wink. Drilling down through a website can be a laborious task, even for the best of those that are computer savvy. When I was involved with other invasive species and other things that hit, posters were probably one of the most effective things that we found, targeting areas where people congregate. And I just look at this summer, we have between Summerfest, the market is about to begin. People see these things, posting them on places where people go, on the municipal buildings, et cetera, without a great degree of expense. CFIA has information available as well. There are PDFs and other things that we can, even a poster talking about, have you seen oak wilt, with a picture of a tree with it and then links to it, is highly informative without a lot of expense and a lot of time. I'm sure that our communications people can help. As I say, the Public Works is doing what they can at this point, dealing with it, and I appreciate the efforts of Public Works and Mr. Cook. And there's things going on. It's just a matter of making sure that we've got up-to-date information put in front of people and the way for them to further investigate without a lot of expense. And I do concur, waiting till August is kind of waiting too long, because by the time the Ag Subcommittee gets to it, goes through it, comes up with a recommendation, and then they're at least another month, if not 2 months, before they reconvene, before something comes up. It's just, it's really a slow process at that level. So this has a little bit better immediacy, and I think that making sure the resources are available for Public Works to help at this point is probably the best course of action.
Okay, thank you. Comments on that, Ivan?
Absolutely. Safe Tree would be more than happy to host a webinar. When you say posters, I think it's really effective. The power we have through social media these days is incredible. It is something we've never experienced, and over the last 3 years, it's became such a massive machine, and Safe Tree could host, with the help of the town of Pelham, a educational webinar with myself and Kate as a team, and I would even try and get Rhoda DeYoung from Vineland Research to be involved as well. She's more than happy. She's an expert in pests and diseases, and we would be more than happy to host that and get the message out there. We would just need help getting it out there.
Thank you, Ivan. I go back to the Director of Public Works, Jason.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So I've just been informed by our communications specialist that there is an alert. So I just went on with my phone. When you type in pelham.ca, there's an alert that comes up right away with oak wilt. So anybody that visits our website will see that alert when they come on.
Okay, excellent. Good to know. Actually, it's great to know that that town is set up to handle something like this. Again, it may or may not be able to get Health Canada on side, but it's something as simple as pruning and doing that in a timely fashion. If that's obviously something the citizens can and should be made aware of as soon as possible for any kind of advertise or information blitz that the town can put out, and perhaps partner with yourself and Vineland to get a webinar out on social media, or that'd be great, I would think. Any other comments? No, see, Mr. CAO, any further comments that you see the town, this unfolding as far as the town assets go?
No.
Okay, thank you. Okay, without any further comments then from council, Ivan, we again thank you for bringing this to us, and we will be in touch with keep in touch with our public works to see, keep an eye on the Niagara Falls situation. But actually, the number one thing is to get a campaign or information campaign going, and tell everybody don't touch your trees until the fall. Basically, is what we're saying. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ivan. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Wink and seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved that Council received the delegation from Safe Tree Limited regarding oak wilt for information, and that the issue will be forwarded to the appropriate advisory committee for input and comment, and that staff prepare a report for Council's consideration and propose next steps for addressing the newly identified threat of oak wilt prior to year end, and that Pelham commence with a proactive public information campaign in a timely and expedient manner.
Okay. Any comments on this from council? Okay. I'll turn it back to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So commencing with the vote, Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that motion's carried. Thank you.
Okay. Again, Ivan, thanks for appearing before council, and let's work together and get the message out there. Thank you. Yep. Time to get back to work. Yeah. Again, thank you for the presentation. And to you, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So moving to our next item on the agenda, it is a Pelham Roads Needs Study and Pavement Condition Index by Applied Research Associated Incorporated, and they will be making their presentation via Zoom. So I'll just look to the Deputy Clerk to see if we're ready to move forward. And we are. So I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And consultants, you have the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and respective council members and everyone present in the room. Thank you for allowing me to speak this morning. I am a senior pavement engineer at Applied Research Associates, and I have been working for ARA for about 11 years, and I'm involved in various aspects of pavement engineering, including pavement management for municipal highways, and pavement design and analysis. So we recently completed a road needs study for Pelham. We also did a similar study back in 2019, and I'm here today to present to you the findings. Let me share my screen first. Sorry. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Which screen are you seeing? Right. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through this, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. So the project mandate was to complete the evaluations of 628 road sections, which is about 244 kilometers, and 41% of them were asphalt concrete road sections, and 59% was what we call a single or double surface treatment, and that included 145 kilometers of road sections. Pavement inspections were completed in accordance with Ministry of Transportation Surface Condition Manual guidelines. And here is a quick example of how we come up with the PCI rating. So PCI goes from 0 to 100. And to come up with PCI, we look at the distresses, which are, for example, alligator cracking, longitudinal cracking, any kind of deficiencies that you see in a pavement. So you take the type of deficiency, quantity, and how severe that deficiency is, and you come up with a PCI of 0 to 100. So anything between 0 to 50 is considered as poor, and 50 to 60 considered as fair, 60 to 75 is good, and 75 to 100 is considered as very good. This is a snapshot of all of the PCI values by section. So this is just a snapshot of how we presented the report. And I believe that you have a copy of the report. So I'm just explaining you how you view the report. Some examples of good sections. So this is a roadway, Canberra Road, 8CB. So 8CB is the asphalt concrete roadways, PCI of 72. This is a fair, so 56, Welland Road. This is an asphalt concrete roadway in poor condition, 50. So poor is 0 to 50, so that, let's just consider that this is on the higher end of better than poor. This is the surface treatment section, and it's in a good condition, 70. This is a fair condition roadway surface treatment, 54. And this is a PCI of 56, which is in a poor condition. This is a quick snapshot of a color-coded PCI map. The bigger one on your left is the entire town of Pelham, and this is the Pelham Square, just zoomed in from over here. And as you can see, all these color codes, the green, yellow, blue, and red are based on very good, fair, and poor conditions. Now, for 2023, overall PCI rating distribution goes as follows. So we have 29% of the sections in very good condition, 37% are in good, 21% in fair, and 12% of the section is in poor condition. Comparing that with our findings of 2019 PCI distribution, our very good condition in 2019 used to be 45%. We are now down to 29%. Good condition was in 41% in 2019. We're down to 37% in 2023. And fair category has increased, which means we have now more roads that were in good and very good condition moved on to the fair and poor condition, because the fair and poor condition has increased in the distribution. And total average network in 2019 was 69, which was already low to begin with in comparing with the neighborhoods. And in 2023, we are at 65, which is a big decline, PCI of 4. So looking at as a whole, what kind of distresses are we seeing in these the asphalt concrete pavement and the surface treated pavement? This is the deduct influence curve. So what we're doing is what is the influence of the distresses. So for example, for raveling, we have the highest amount of raveling or distress in HCB, which is the asphalt concrete, is raveling is 20.5%, followed by distortion and then rutting, and then wheel track cracking and alligator cracking. For surface treatment, it's the distortion followed by alligator cracking, rutting, edge cracking. So what's important here is rutting, alligator cracking, raveling. These distresses have the highest weighting factor when we calculate PCI too. So every distresses has, some distresses are temperature related, some environment related, some distresses are structural related, right? Some distresses are age related. So when it's age related, it deducts PCI value much less than when it's a structural related distresses. And if we are seeing rutting and alligator cracking and things like that, then that means that we have heavier vehicles that are moving on the roadway, and we need to reevaluate our designs. We need to reevaluate structurally, is that road sufficient? So we no longer only have the problem of PCI going down, we have PCI going down rapidly, because even if you went and did a mill-in inlay, your traditional mill-in inlay, maybe it's time that we reevaluate the sections in a project level to see what kind of vehicles we're getting. We used to only get cars and maybe dump trucks in the road, and are we getting more trucks? Are we now that the town commercialization has gone so high up, like what is happening in that roadway? It's important that we also look at in a project level situation. So these are some of the examples of distresses of what I'm talking about. This is all for asphalt concrete, so HCB. This is wheel path cracking, raveling. We've just got that. The raveling is here. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse. It's just a zoomed in version of what raveling looks like. You're basically losing the aggregate on top. This is distortion. Distortion is just, you're not getting a smooth ride. And then there is the rutting. It's not very clear, but there is rutting in this pavement. Example distresses for the surface treatment. So here's the distortion, rutting, edge cracking, loss of cover. So loss of cover is similar to raveling in a HCB. And then alligator cracking, we all know what alligator cracking looks like. Performance models. So we developed these performance models back in 2019 for our 2019 project, and models does not change so much year over year. We have to reevaluate the models every time we do the project, but and also depends on how much data we have. So if we have enough data to do this, then the models can be changed quite significantly. But these are the models that we followed, and we ran 4 different kinds of forecasts for a 10-year scenario. One was unrestricted budget. So unrestricted budget means town has unlimited amount of money to do anything. What happens when that happens? What kind of results do we get? We also ran a forecast for the current budget scenario, which is $1 million a year. And then we also ran a scenario for the current average network of 65. What happens if we were to just say, okay, let's just, whatever happened, let's just maintain the current network of 65. And then we also ran a scenario of maintaining average network 72, which is what largely other regions and cities in the area, towns in the area like to maintain. So I have detailed scenarios in the report for each one of them. If you're interested to see the numbers, because of time, I'm only showing the actual numbers here for the current budget scenario. So in 2024, so based on our scenario, this is the 10-year forecast. So 2024, your PCI will be 62. You may ask me, I have $1 million. Why am I only spending $878,000? This is for capital works only. This does not go into the crack sealing and patching and all of that stuff. So when you like the next, we check all of the roadways that comes on the list, and then the next one that comes on the list is going to be beyond $1 million, then it just caps it at whatever the next amount is. So that's why our amount for 2024 is $878,000. Network PCI is going to go down to 62, and then so on and so forth, and we will end up at 2033 at PCI of 30. And these are all based on that current 2023 dollar value for unit costs. These are the budget forecasts for each of the 4 scenarios. So unrestricted would give us The amount goes all the way from $40 million in 2024 to, you will be spending, if that's the case, then you'll be spending closer to $2-3 million in 2033, but your PCI is up in the 80s range. And this is a quick snapshot of what we just talked about for $1 million. If you were to maintain current PCI of 65, so the budget would be, the budget required for 2024 in the first would be just over $4 million. So what you're seeing green are all resurfacing, and all of the blues are major rehabilitation. So major work versus just the million lay works. And then that budget is going to go up and down throughout the years, ending up at about $4 million back in 2033. And if you were to maintain 72, then we would need a considerable amount of money in 2024, which is just over $20 million. And then we would bring a lot of road network back to shape. And then after that, it's consistently about $4 to $5 million in average in the next 9 years. This is the present network value and priority index. I'm not going to go much into detail about this, but this just shows a snapshot of our PCI, the present network value and the priority index. It's basically, what kind of priority we're looking at. And this is the index that we use to calculate the forecast and, which street comes first, because there may be, for example, Wessel Drive, Ollie Street to Sawmill is 51, and let's just assume that Sawmill to Effingham was also 51 in 2023. Which roads should come first? Because it's no longer just based on the PCI, it's based on how old is this pavement, what is when was the construction done, right? And there's just so many other scenarios that we use to prioritize a pavement one versus the other based on these. We also ran short-term maintenance needs for 2023, and short-term maintenance needs are deep patching, shallow patching, and crack sealing, and that's just based on the alligator cracking. And for deep patching, it's high severity alligator cracking. Shallow patching would be low to medium severity, and then crack sealing would be everything except alligator cracking. Let's not ask our crack sealing guys to go and do crack sealing all of the alligator cracks. That's just not right to do. We don't want to do crack sealing in alligator cracking, period. The total amount is $100,000, closer to over $100,000 for maintenance. Now, this is different from the capital ones that we talked about earlier. In summary, so this is the network budget summary. Overall, road condition is in good condition with average PCI of 65, average HCB is 75, average LCB is 60. So right now we're looking at our surface single and double surface treatment network on a falling pattern more than our asphalt roadways. Current $1 million annual budget is not sufficient to maintain current network average PCI. It's going to be reduced to 30 in 2033, which is very poor. Annual budget of about $7.4 million in average would be needed to provide a stable network condition, which is a PCI of 72. Now, this is a slide about pavement preservation. Pavement preservation is a strategy that should be implemented to keep the good roads condition in good condition. So when I say this, remember I said how HCB roads are in 75 of an average. So that doesn't mean we don't spend any money in the asphalt roadways that are 75. We have to spend money on a roadway that are over 65 to between 65 and 75, because then you're keeping those road conditions in good shape and you're not spending a lot of money to do pavement preservation. Pavement preservation means these are maintenance treatments that are low-cost treatments that are available, and you can spend on it as long as your PCI is not not below 60. Most likely, it's best when it's 65 to 75. So we can talk about that more in detail if you'd like. And then we also have to make sure that our construction history data is sufficiently maintained so that everything that, all the analysis we do, it's based on construction history, and this is one of those things that should be updated annually. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. We'll open it to council for any questions and comments to the presenter. Councilor Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the presenter. I have a question about the page you called Present Network Value and Priority Index. That page, the documents I've been looking at appear to be all north and south type roads. I'm more concerned about east and west because I think that's the direction of development, not just in Pelham, but in Welland, and thinking particularly of a road like Sumler Road or anything to do with East Fenwick. And when that comes up, will they be categorized as the UBC or HCB or LCB when they come on when we start using them more? Because I think the Sumler Road is pretty well used now, at least to the level of Effingham, I think. So,
any comments on that? To the consultant. Oh, you want me to go to jail? Okay, Jason, go ahead. Public Works.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I agree with that comment. It'll depend on the development that's happening. We're also working with a consultant right now doing a development charge study, which we use to basically try to gain funds to do important road networks to support development. So we are looking at that as part of our forecast, what roads, and a lot of them are east-west, which ones need to be built up to support the future development. In this particular study, although the present network value kind of looks at the priority index there, it's more of a visual condition assessment of our current road network. But definitely engineering staff and public works staff are looking at where the development's happening and what infrastructure is going to have to be in place to support that development and future traffic flows.
Thank you for that. Councillor?
yes, thank you. And now that the Director of Public Works is in the conversation here, we've had a long-term conversation about this report, and this is to me, I regard this as an effect and not a cause. So I think the real cause is probably the subsurface of the roads and the drainage and that type of thing. This is kind of a directional thing, and if anything, the cost is going to be higher than what's proposed in this, I think, if we fix the roads so that they last. And we're going to have a report later on that talks about a culvert, 100-year lifespan on a culvert, moving from 50 years to 100 years. I'd be very interested in seeing what kind of technological advances can be made with our roads. So if you'd like to comment on that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So road building's been around for quite a number of years. There are new technologies that try to preserve and stretch the tax dollar as far as it can go with respect to road reconstruction, rehabilitation. We're looking at different options, recycling options. One of the things that's kind of unique about Pelham for a smaller rural community is that we have no gravel roads. Everything is hard surfaced. That was completed. Most of our rural roads were hard surfaced, and when I say hard surfaced, it's the surface treatment type material, which is has a lifespan of about 15, 20 years. And those roads, a lot of those roads were done. There was a large investment by the town of Pelham about 20 years ago. So we're coming up to a situation now where we've got a lot of roads that are meeting the end of its service life, and unfortunately, that's the situation we're in. We're trying to come up with innovative ways and technologies to try to rehabilitate and rebuild those sections of road, but they're all coming they're all coming to the end of their life, expected life, and it's time to invest more money into those roads, especially in the rural network. And that's what we're finding. And a lot of those rural roads, again, built with, you know, not substandard materials, but cost-effective, efficient cost materials at that time. So in the sub-base of those materials, you're absolutely right. We don't have crushed limestone. We have TCG, sand, gravel type materials that when they get wet, they do start to break down the road surface. So, and it's basically a measure of the amount of investment that you put into a road versus the level of service that council's expecting and directing. So,
Councillor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess looking at this from perspective of our human ingenuity that goes into this, we're getting basically $7.5 million worth of work for $1 million a year right now. I guess that's, you know, that's a good thing. The methods have changed for the road, but back to the materials, I think we're going to have to review them, and we're certainly going to have a lot of traffic that's going to come off the highway once the extension is finished. And that'll change things quite a bit, I think. And who's going to pay for all that, I guess. So, no, that's fine. That's fine, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kerr.
I think one thing that we all need to be aware of is that people look to avoid traffic. And so they have a tendency to find those roads that will give them the fastest and straightest travel path. And traffic counts on those roads, example being Foss Road, an example being Sumbler Road. If you can avoid having to drive Canberra Road or, to be honest, drive Highway 20 through Font Hill at any point, you're going to find the way to use them, which increases our traffic counts. The secondary part that's come along is through the Ministry of Transportation over the years, vehicle sizes have been allowed to get bigger and bigger and bigger, which has also added to a whole other layer of things that I think, and the infrastructure. When it was built, the roads were built to a particular capacity at a particular time, and we're asking for greater response to them. So I concur with the comments made by Councillor Olson. We're getting pretty good value out of our situation. But I also look at the thing coming forward as saying, if we had $7 million to our budget, then we're talking a massive, and we all are aware that people were really thrilled about the tax increase this year. You tack on $7 million more suddenly, we might as well get armor because we're going to be hunted down and we will have big bullet targets put on our bodies. So we have to look at reason through everything. We look at identification of things. Some roads, the challenge is always what priorities come to the top and how we can work at them. But I think I want to commend Public Works at least for a ranking system that's come forward to try and look at things and dealing with the most significant issues in the most cost-effective ways. And the bottom line is we can't keep everybody happy all the time. But yes, it's part of the planning process. And I'm glad to see that in the new development that there's a way to recover fees, because all of these houses add more traffic, and so all of these people are using the roads. If it wasn't for the development, then we may not be in that situation, so it's a double-edged sword. So thank you for the reports that we've got. I appreciate the presentation today as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nesnick.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Cannell, for your eye-opening report. Certainly, not being an engineer background, it was an eye-opener. I think roads are a subject and a topic that citizens do expect decent roads. So, and I don't think moving forward $1 million in the budget is going to cut it. So I think we're either going to have to look at shifting some thinking in terms of, you know, cutting here and cutting there and shifting those funds over into roads, because I think people expect decent roads. It's always, you know, who's got the most terrible road in Niagara event, and I don't think Pelham wants to be that company. So Moving forward, I feel that come budget time, I hope that folks will support either shifting some funds over into roads to maintain that 60 PCI at least, or 65 PCI. I think moving forward and getting up into that 75% might be an unrealistic expectation and goal, but certainly I think we'll need to consider keeping those roads at that 65% or PCI score. So I will be supporting some budget movement into that moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any comments on that, on what council has been, on the comments of council from the consultant?
Yes, I just wanted to point out several things here, just based on the experience. So you mentioned through you, Mr. Mayor, that there are several new developments happening. So my experience with working with other regions and city, and I can give you an example of, how City of Mississauga maintained the road network, and now how City of Brampton, the exploding subdivision, how they're maintaining that, what they're assuming, because contractors are going in, building subdivision, they are basically wreaking havoc on existing pavements, and they were not giving back the new subdivision, the pavement that they were building, they were not giving up to the standard to City of Brampton. So what City of Brampton did was they put a new, it's not new, it's been on for several years. They have to, so there is a design structural number structural number is basically a number associated with the road. And we do that, we give that number to the pavement when we design it, and we design it for certain traffic. And this goes back to what we said, the roads in Pelham was not designed for what we are seeing in terms of traffic. But let's at least be proactive and put that design numbers for the new development that are happening. So what we can do is in a contract, if you have something like, contractor, you have to build the road design to the structural number, and you have to prove to me that you're giving me the road back to what I have expected you to do. So in that case, what happens is contractor has to spend money to hire consultants or several other institutions to make sure that they write a report that this road is being given back at a structural number that was designed to, or, is it sufficient or is it deficient? And that's something I can put a light in, in future too, if needed. And I think that's one of a very, very important thing that we can adopt from City of Brampton. And then other things was priority index. So why there is only these ones? We have everything that's in town of Pelham is listed in the report. This is just a snapshot that was presented in the presentation, just the first page or first half of the page. So everything is there, but like Director of Public Works said, there is a lot of factors associated with it, and as I pointed out, we're seeing lots of structural distresses happening in the town. So moving forward, when we do our road network, it needs to go on a project level analysis. We need to look at the structure, we need to look at the subbase, the subgrade, how is it? And I heard the drainage issues, and I can look at the data and I can say that yes, that there are problems here. It's not just how I like to explain it is, it's not just putting a foundation on your face to make you look beautiful. You have to treat the issues on why you're having all those issues. So that's really my comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So my question to you, if I may, is, and obviously could be asking this to my Public Works, but I'll go with you. So when you go to a developer and ask them for, let's say, a number 6 road, taking number 6, I was under the impression that that there was a provincial standard and that they all met the provincial standard. So with this number 6, or request, would that be above the provincial standards then?
So it really depends on the traffic that you're expecting. So there is a provincial standard for these are the standard that you need to maintain for so and so such. But are they maintaining it? That's the question. You know, they say they're maintaining it, but are they proving it to anybody? Are they giving a fact to Director of Public Works saying, okay, we have built this roadway and here is the proof that we've maintained the standard that we were supposed to do. And that's kind of where we need to go now, because everything is expensive and people are and it's the problem that we've seen in so many municipals, and so it's one of those things that we really need to put a screw on to the contractors.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions from council? Not seeing any. So I thank you for your presentation to this council, and have a great day.
Thank you.
To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Niznik and seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be it resolved that Council receive the 2023 Pelham Road Needs Study and Pavement Condition Index presentation from Shaila Kanal, Senior Engineer at Applied Research Associated, Inc., for information.
Okay, thank you. Any last comments on this presentation? Not seeing any.
Starting the vote with Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that motion's carried. Thank you.
Yes. Why don't we, that wraps up the delegation work. Why don't we take a 5-minute break, and then we will come back and continue on with the other items. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good suggestion by the clerk. Might be a little something in the paper.
Sales pitch. I've seen one.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, I see all councillors are again present. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we're moving to item number 6 on your agenda. That's the adoption of the council meetings from our last regular meeting, June 7th. I have a motion moved by Councillor Hildebrand, second by Councillor Kerr. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. C-11/2023, regular council meeting, June 7th, 2023.
Thank you. After viewing these minutes, is there any omissions or additions that any members of council deem necessary? And not seeing any, Mr. Clerk?
Starting the vote with Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that motion's carried. Thank you. So item number 7 is any request from council members to lift consent agenda items. And I would remind council, you can speak to any item on the consent agenda. Item 7 is if you want to propose an amendment or a standalone resolution dealing with one of those items. And I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Is there any member of council that wishes to lift an agenda item? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So then moving to number 8, the consent agenda, and it's rather short at this meeting, so I think we could deal with them all in block and deal with any comments or questions council members might have on any of the issues.
Okay, thank you. Is there any council member that would like to comment on any of the agenda items? No? Councilor Niznik.
Thank you. So through you, Mr. Mayor, just a comment more than anything with regards to the annual report. Thank you very much for that detailed outline. I guess congratulations that our net debt has decreased by $2 million. So just wanted to make that well aware that the public is conscious that we are working really hard to bring those debts down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? I guess, again, on behalf of council, we really do appreciate the work that goes into the annual report. It's something that was lacking before this council, and the last council initiated it, and obviously your department has taken it to a whole new level, judging by the awards that you continue to get. Any comments from the treasurer at this time?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your comments. We do receive positive feedback from the public saying that the information is very helpful and easy to read, so we're happy about that. And if anyone has any other feedback for future things to look in the annual report, we're more than open to incorporate that. But I just want to thank, Leah in the communications department and Usama, the deputy treasurer, for the team that pulls all this together.
Yes, like I say, every year it's a great job, and again, council thanks your team. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Niznik and seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the consent and agenda items as listed on the June 21st, 2023 council agenda be received and the recommendations contained therein be approved.
Thank you. Any last comments on these items? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk?
Starting the vote with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
And Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that motion's carried. Thank you. Moving now to item number 10, reports. We have a verbal report this morning from Councillor Eckhart on the Active Transportation Committee.
Thank you. Councillor Eckhart, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief report on the Pelham Active Transportation Committee. We had one meeting and we have our second meeting today, later this afternoon. At the first meeting, Brian Beatty was elected as the chair of the committee, with Frank Adamson as the vice chair. It's a very ambitious, let's say, agenda that we have over the next 4 years, highlighted by improvements in our paths and trails, our bicycle, improving the bicycle situation in the town, so that we can move to the next provincial designation of what our town is. I think right now we're at one level and we want to go to the next highest level. And also a number of issues in and around traffic movement and complaints in the town, and we'll be working on those as well. So it looks like a very energetic and enthusiastic committee, and I'm looking forward to our continued meetings. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. And we look for input from this committee as the term rolls on. That brings me to a question, if I may ask it, of the director. We had some signage that was waiting for, I believe, on Canberra Road, and I can't get much more vague than that, and I'm sorry about that. I remember I was talking to Ryan about it during the election campaign, and like I said, I'm very. I just know we were. It's to designate a route, and I don't know if it was a regional signage, but I know it was for Canberra Road. Any comments on on something as vague as that? And I apologize for that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware at the moment what those signs would be. I'll follow up with the manager of Public Works and report back.
Okay, good. I don't know. I talked to Ryan, and I know we were waiting for directional signs or some kind of signage for a bicycle route. If you could do that, it'd be great. Thank you. Yes, yes?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, if you're referring to our Bikes Means Business project that was generated through the PATC last term of council.
Yes.
So that project is ongoing. The PATC and members came up with designated cycling routes. I believe there was 3 or 4 or 5 of them. They tie into major town facilities and locations such as Harold Black Park, the MCC here, as well as Centennial Park. So that work is in progress. We are installing the identification signs for the routes themselves and awaiting kiosk signs that will be installed at home bases, which will give cyclists kind of a view of where they are in the network and where the paths lead. So those are still coming.
Excellent, thank you, and thank you for pulling out of a big situation exactly what I was talking about. Thank you. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Hildebrand and seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that Council receive the verbal update from Councillor Eckhart regarding the Pelham Active Transportation Committee for information.
Not seeing any further comments.
Starting the vote with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that motion is carried. Moving now to item staff reports requiring action. The first one is 10.2.1, release of interest of original road allowance, Orchard Hill Road. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wink and seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that Council receive the report 2023-133, release of interest in road allowance, Orchard Hill Road for information, and that staff advise the owners of the required property to cover the entire cost, releasing the town's interest in the subject property, and that staff bring forward a bylaw for Council's consideration to stop up and close this portion of the original road allowance once the owners confirm agreement with the associated costs. Mr. Mayor, if I could speak to that just momentarily, this is to provide some clarification. This is a different section of Orchard Hill Road that we dealt with previously. So this is a different section of road.
Yes, thank you for bringing that out. Any council comment, questions on this report? Not seeing any. Mr. Clerk?
Yes, so starting with the vote with Councillor Eckhart,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand. Yes. Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
Councillor Niznik,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
and Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that motion is carried. Moving to item 10.2.2, I have a motion moved by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved that Council receive report 2023-0103, the eScribe Vote Manager module for information, and that Council direct staff to continue with the status quo of utilizing voice-recorded votes on all resolutions. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any councillor have questions or comments on this item? I turn to Councillor Hildebrand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to address the voting processes that this council has experienced. Prior to the pandemic, vote was carried out without recorded votes unless requested. During the pandemic, that process changed and the recorded vote was required. I believe it's now the appropriate time to remove the requirement for recorded votes unless requested by a council member. And therefore, I'm prepared to make an amendment to the motion for council to direct staff to bring a procedural bylaw amendment to remove recorded votes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any, first of all, do you have a seconder at this time?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you. So let's, Councillor Wink, you'll second that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Therefore, we can now discuss that. Any comments, questions on the amendment proposed by Councillor Hildebrand? Councillor Nesnick?
Yes, I think at this time that would help save time during the meeting, and I would be happy to support that. I also just wonder if we should further investigate the eScribe Vote Manager module. It looks as though it's a fairly straightforward and easy system to use. I know other towns are using it. Maybe we could investigate that a little bit further and possibly move to that once we find a permanent home, whether it be here or in the chamber councils. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nesnick. Councillor Olson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll support the motion, the amendment and the motion. I think it's time to do this, but I'm not in favor of the voting module though, because I prefer the transparency of holding my hand up. We voted like this at the transit meetings, and it kind of gets lost. The only other suggestion I would like to make, Mr. Mayor, if we're going to alter the way we vote, I would like to see us move into the U-shaped thing, because when Councillor Eckert and Councillor Niznik lean forward, I feel kind of lonely down here. So.
Yeah, somehow or other, you sometimes are a little segregated down in the one end there.
I feel bad.
You and Councillor Kerr, yes. Okay, any other comments, Councillor Kerr?
I just want to double check, maybe my hearing goes a little bit at times, at the end, that the recorded votes are not going to be undertaken unless requested as a recorded vote, correct? As long as that's, it just sounded like a recorded votes will not be taken and not recorded. I'm going, well, no, it should be, if they're requested, they should be, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I guess my feelings on this, we do electronic voting at the council and region, but you have 32 votes to count. So that's why it's handy for them. I like the fact that when we vote, it's immediately seen by the public as to who voted and how they voted. That would still stand, so that's great. I don't know if paying $2,700 a year for the other option. I would vote against that myself, but whatever. Okay, to the clerk then. What have you got written down?
A lot of good stuff, Mr. Mayor. So I will just refresh Councillor's memory. We have an amendment moved by Councillor Hildebrand and seconded by Councillor Wink that council directs staff to bring forward a procedural bylaw amendment to remove the mandatory requirement for recorded voting on all resolutions unless requested by a council member. So we would take a vote on that first, and then we'd return to the main motion.
Okay. Okay. No, I think he's, I think he was just waving his hand. So on the amendment, any other comments or questions? And again, refresh on the amendment. What is it we're voting on then, Mr. Clerk?
Okay, so you're voting on whether or not we remove the requirement to have a recorded vote on each resolution of council unless specifically requested by a member of council pursuant to the Municipal Act.
Okay, meaning, so if you vote in favor of that, then you're voting in favor of a hands vote most of the time, unless it's a recorded vote, correct?
Yeah, we're voting on that first, and then we'll go back and vote on whether or not we want to implement the eScribe electronic voting module as a separate topic.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions then on the amendment? If not, we'll have the clerk call the vote.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to start with the mover, Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that motion is carried. We'll now return to the main amendment, or the main motion that was put on the floor, and that's resolved that council directs staff to continue with the status quo of utilizing voice votes on all resolutions, or show of hands on all resolutions would probably be more appropriate now based on the last motion. So any discussion on that? So whether or not we implement an electronic vote recorder, or we just
Stay with the hands.
Yes.
Okay, so if you vote for this, then you're voting to go to eScribe.
No, if you vote for this,
Yes.
it's the status quo of just
we
the
stay.
chair determining the vote.
Okay, excellent. Okay, excellent. So if you vote for this, we stay the status quo. If you vote against it, then what's the option?
Then we'd look for a resolution to direct staff on the implementation of the eScribe voting manual module.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on this? Not seeing any. Please call the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to start the vote with Councillor Eckhart, just to put you on the spot with a confusing topic.
I think I'm voting no.
Good.
Yes, no. Let me start again. No.
Okay, so I just want to be clear before council starts to vote. Voting yes would mean that we don't implement the eScribe electronic voting module. Voting no means we would have to have a discussion on implementing an electronic voting module.
Yes.
That's what I thought you said. Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
No.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that motion is carried. Thank you. Moving now to staff report 10.2.3. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wink and seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that council receive report 2023-0143, Cream Street Culvert Replacement Budget Exceedance for information, and that council approve the award of Cream Street Culvert Replacement Project to CRL Campbell Construction and Design and Drainage Limited in the amount of $997,909.50 plus applicable taxes, and that council approve a budget increase of $331,616.21 for project RD 02-23, and that council approve the additional funding for Cream Street culvert replacement transferred from the following capital projects and reserve: 1, RD 16-23, bridge design construction in the amount of $75,000. 2, RD 0623 in the amount of $44,981. 3, $121,666 is from savings on project RD 11-22. And for $89,969 from the roads reserve.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Before turning it to council, a few questions myself to the director. A big increase, obviously, over the expectations. It's hard to believe that it's going to cost upwards of $1 million, because I believe last year we did the engineering report also, did we not?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. We are legislated to inspect all of our bridges and major structures every 2 years. So we did do not a PCI, a BCI, a Bridge Condition Index report, and then a full inspection of all our major culverts. So they've identified this structure as a structure that should be replaced immediately. Last year, we had a budget of $750,000 or $700,000 for the replacement of a structure. That basically, to serve the hydraulic capacity, that required 2 pipes. In order to serve the hydraulic capacity at this location, it requires 3. So there's obviously an incremental cost there with respect to the number of pipes that we're putting in place. As well, they are larger diameter. They're over 3 meters. And what we've been doing in the past several years, when we've been replacing these structures, we've been using a product called Wheelite, which is a HDPE type material pipe. They have a service life of 100 plus years, and they stand up and last a lot longer than your plain steel galvanized pipe. So the costs have gone up for that type of material. So that's the majority of the cost increase.
Excellent. But last year, don't we usually, when we do a project, whether it be this or the culverts on 16 Road, we do the engineering 1 year, and then the next year we like specific to that job, and then the next year we put the tender out. Is that not how we did this, I presume?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. We try to work on a 3-year program. We're design and then follow up with construction 2 years from that time. Yes. Specifically with the road projects, because that may include some property acquisitions, utility relocates, that type of thing. With the bridges, we've been doing it back-to-back years, so design 1 year and then reconstruct the following year. So in this case, the prices, the estimates the engineer gave us have gone up since the time that they were working through the design. I believe the design on this project was completed over the winter months into the spring of this year, so it was completed a little bit after budget approval from last year. So, and unfortunately, with respect to the material prices, that's what's increased the cost here.
Thank you. And so that engineering just for this project last year, what was that amount at?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, don't have that number in front of me directly, but I believe it was in the order of 70 to 100,000. But now, what we've been doing is we've been putting out an engineering assignment based on the previous inspections that we've done. We've been putting out engineering assignments for 2 years. So we try to replace a major structure every year. So we've been putting out design assignments that would cover the following 2 years. So that cost for engineering work actually includes the engineering work to complete 2 structures. So.
Okay, thank you. I just remember, I guess my first year on council, we replaced 2 culverts on Sawmill Road just east of Center Street, and for whatever reason, we didn't use culverts. We used the bridge on that one, and this bridge, a beautiful bridge, was $1.2 million, and now we're almost there just to replace culverts now. It's crazy. So I'm glad that we're I think we must be increasing the capacity. If we're using the same diameter that was there, but we're putting 3 in, I take it we're actually increasing the hydraulic flow through that area?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have the details on that. That would have to refer to the engineering design consultant. But when they do the design, they take into account and factor in the hydraulic capacity that's required, and that's what they replace to. They wouldn't anticipate additional flows or increased capacity. It would be to basically serve what's there currently.
Excellent. Well, considering the fact that we're getting into 100-year storms every 15 or 20 years, it's probably a right direction to be going. So I commend Public Works for looking into the future on that. Anyway, my comments. I'll open it to anyone on council. Councillor Kerr.
I think this is an extremely valuable remediation, especially considering the proximity of Station 3 fire being on Cream Street. So I think in terms of them for access and everything else, this is money well spent.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So commencing with the vote, Councillor Kerr?
Yes.
Councillor Niznik?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart?
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
That motion's carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 10.2.4. I have a motion moved by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that Council receive report 2023-0148, revised purchase card policy S402-01 for information, and that Council approve the revised purchasing card policy.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. CEO, I didn't see it in the report. I take it this does not include any cards going to council members.
We might find room in there for an exception for you, Your Worship, but generally no.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from any member of council? I see Councillor Nesnick.
Yes, so thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question to the CAO or maybe Ms. Sturton. Just P cards are very valuable and very useful in a corporation. However, they come with also very high risk in terms of abuse of the P card. So just making sure the policy is very well written, and it does look as though you've got some good adjectives in there in terms of thou shalt and those thou will, and the consequences of misusing it improperly. Just wondering, there is one that says about the receipts. It says may be requested. I'm just wondering, or may be submitted at the end of the month. I'm just wondering if that should be shall be submitted receipts, so that it makes sure that all P card users keep their receipts and submit those to, if there's a reason why it's not shall submit the receipts. Thank you. That's my question to either of you.
To the CAO?
Well, certainly, I'll at least in part turn the answer over to the treasurer, but what I can say is that this policy didn't come from nowhere. We do, in fact, have an existing policy. This is us modernizing or updating it. And we always, when we do significant policies of this nature, do a best practice review and find other municipalities and use them as basis for our updating. So there's that piece. And then secondly, I suspect that the permissive language there certainly pertains to, you'll recall that about 2 months ago, Council changed the per diem, the expenses policy, which now covers per diem rather than specific receipts. So that's at least one instance where receipts aren't needed, although, but beyond that, I'd certainly welcome Ms. Quinlan Murphy's commentary. She's led a team that's put a lot of work into this document.
So through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
We do require receipts to be attached to the expense reports, and actually with the new BMO card. We're switching from Visa to MasterCard. It's going to be all electronic, and all the receipts will be attached electronically. So I think the wording is there because sometimes a receipt is misplaced, but we're always chasing them down. So we can change that wording to say, you know, definitely is required. The accounts payable clerk does review all of the statements to ensure that the receipts do match. We also do a secondary review to make sure that the purchases that are made are legitimate, like are purchases that are eligible to be used, and we haven't had any issues of misuse in all these years with the P card. So it goes through a few levels of review. One, the director has to sign off, and two, the accounts payable clerk does the final review to make sure that the account is coded correctly, all the receipts are there, and that it meets the definition that it should be on a P card.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor?
Okay, great. Thank you for that explanation. That makes sense, and we can carry on then.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? Councillor Olson?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, with all these restrictions, I'm glad I'm not getting a credit card.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, sometimes the restrictions are such a hassle. Yes. Any other comments? Councillor Wink?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the treasurer. How many cards are issued? How many staff cards?
I think we have approximately 40 to 45 cards.
So half the staff?
Yep.
Wow. That's all I got to say is wow.
Oh.
Yeah, that seems excessive, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. With a $5,000 limit.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor Wink. Any other comments? Not seeing any. I think reading the report, it seems like a very astute change going to the other card, and puts us in line for some rebates. So obviously that's always a good thing to have. So that looks like it's a win situation for sure. And I thank staff for searching it out and making a change. Excellent. Any other comment? Oh, to the treasurer.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to comment to Councillor Wink. So this, by having a purchasing card, we have eliminated petty cash. So in the past, staff would go and use petty cash to do the small purchases, and a lot of times, like, the cards have become very useful, especially in the recreation department, when we have, programs and counselor and the staff that have to go out and buy things for the programs. So it really has streamlined the purchasing of some very small items, whereas before you had to control the petty cash and reconcile that, and this actually makes it a lot easier. And then a lot of those cards at the end of the summer, because some of the staff, like, there's an increase in staff obviously in the RCW area for the programming, they're canceled after. So that 40 would be like the peak of the year when we have additional staff that are running programs.
Thank you for that explanation.
Yes, again, I thank the treasurer for that. Thank you. I believe, Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So starting the vote with Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that motion's carried. Thank you. We now move to item number 13, bylaws. I have a motion moved by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaw, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass the same, and that the Mayor and Clerk be here and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaw, being bylaw 38-2023, being a bylaw to establish a reserve fund for invasive species management. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. How timely to be on this agenda. Any other comments from members of council? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So starting the vote with Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
Councillor Niznik,
Yes.
and Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That motion's carried. Thank you. Moving now to item number 15, we have a resolution to move in camera, moved by Councillor Eckhart, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider a matter under Section 239, Paragraph 2 of the Municipal Act as follows. Personnel matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal employees, and labor relations or employee negotiations, one item for consideration of appointments to advisory committees.
Okay, thank you. Any comments? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk.
Starting the vote with Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
Councillor Niznik,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
and Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That motion's carried. Thank you. Just give us a minute and we'll. So moving now back into open session. We're ready to go on the live stream. The deputy clerk has advised me. So we have a motion moved by Councillor Kerr and seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that council appoint the following individual in an ex officio advisory capacity to the Pelham Active Transportation Committee, Regional Councillor Diane Hewson, and that council direct the town clerk to prepare and present the necessary appointment bylaw at the following regular meeting of council.
Okay, any further discussion? Not seeing any, Mr. Clerk.
Starting the vote with Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Kerr.
Yes.
Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that motion is carried. Thank you. So we now have item number 18 on our agenda, the confirmatory bylaw. I have a motion moved by Councillor Niznik and seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and passed, being bylaw number 39-2023 to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of council for the town of Pelham at its regular meeting held on the 21st day of June 2023.
Okay, any further discussion? Not seeing any.
Starting the vote with Councillor Niznik,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand,
Yes.
Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
and Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that motion is carried. Moving now to 19, the adjournment. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wink and seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that the regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for July 5th, 2023 at 9 a.m.
Thank you. Any further comments? Not seeing any.
Starting the vote with Councillor Kerr,
Yes.
Councillor Niznik,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand,
Yes.
and Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That motion is carried.